The village square was filled with laughter, not joy. Palm fronds swayed gently in the hot afternoon breeze. Drummers beat their talking drums, and women balanced baskets of food on their heads. But the atmosphere was tainted with mockery. Everyone came, not because Amaka and Chinidu's wedding was the event of the year, but because it was bound to be a spectacle, one worth gossiping about for years. Amaka, dressed in a second-hand white gown that dragged across the dusty earth, walked slowly, her head bowed. Her bridesmaids whispered behind her back, their giggles piercing her already wounded pride. The lace at her sleeve was torn, her veil yellowed with age. She had seen city weddings, grand celebrations with champagne fountains, limousines, and rich men in tailored suits. Yet here she was, being handed over to Chinidu, the village's struggling hawker. Chinidu stood tall, though his suit was a size too big. It had been borrowed from a friend who had once worn it for his brother's burial. His shoes were scuffed, and the tie was crooked, but his smile was genuine, his eyes full of hope. He loved Amaka deeply, and he thought today was the beginning of their forever. But Amaka's heart told a different story. As she glanced at Chinidu, her stomach turned. "God punish poverty," she muttered under her breath, her lips barely moving. She couldn't understand why her family had forced her into this. Yes, Chinidu was kind, gentle, and hard-working, but kindness could not fill an empty stomach. Gentleness could not buy jewelry or take her to the city she dreamed of. And hard work still left her in rags. The officiating elder cleared his throat, raising his staff high. "Do you, Amaka, take this man, Chinidu, to be your husband, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer." The crowd snickered at the poorer. Amaka clenched her teeth. Every muscle in her body screamed, no, but her parents' stern gaze from the front row kept her trapped. "Yes," she forced out, her voice low and bitter. The crowd erupted into applause, though many clapped mockingly. One woman whispered, "Give her 6 months. She'll run away." Another laughed, "Amaka will eat sand in that boy's house." Chinidu, oblivious to the snide remarks, slipped a simple brass ring onto Amaka's finger, his heart swelling with pride. He thought he was the luckiest man alive. He thought he had one love. But standing beside him, Amaka was already plotting her escape. That night, as the drummer's beats faded into the dark sky, the foundation of their marriage was already cracking. What began as a day of vows would soon become a lifetime of bitterness, betrayal, and revenge. Married life began in the dim corners of Chinidu's mud hut. The zinc roof leaked when it rained, and the cracked walls let in the cold Harmattan winds. Every morning, Chinidu would rise before dawn, carrying a tray of roasted corn and ground nuts to the roadside to sell. He returned late, sweat-drenched, his palms blackened by firewood, yet still managing a tired smile for Amaka. But Amaka's eyes held no warmth. "So this is the life you promised me? I married a man who competes with beggars on the roadside." She spat one evening as he placed 2 loaves of bread on the table. "Other women marry men who take them to Lagos. You brought me here to rot in dust." When she became pregnant, Chinidu's joy overflowed. He sang to her belly, whispering promises of a brighter future. But Amaka's heart was heavy with fear and anger. 2 children? With what money will we raise them? You can't even buy me wrapper, Chinidu. The day she gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, Kelechi and Kamsi, Chinidu wept tears of happiness. He kissed their tiny foreheads, his voice trembling. "God has doubled my blessings." But Amaka turned her face to the wall. To her, the babies were not blessings but burdens. As weeks passed, Chinidu carried the twins strapped to his back while he sold roasted plantain. He played peek-a-boo with them between customers, making them giggle. But Amaka's tongue remained sharp. "You look like a madman carrying babies while frying plantain. You are disgracing me. Is this how I will live forever?" Neighbors whispered about Amaka's bitterness. "Why can't she appreciate her husband's effort?" some said. But others laughed. "That woman will not last. Mark my words, one day she will disappear." And indeed, bitterness grew like weeds in Amaka's heart. Every mocking word she heard about Chinidu from villagers, she believed. Every promise of wealth she saw in city magazines, she envied. And every time Chinidu returned home with just enough money for Gary, she despised him a little more. The night was heavy with rain, thunder growling in the distance. Inside the hut, the twins slept soundly on a raffia mat, their small chests rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. Chinedu, exhausted from the day's hustle, snored softly beside them. Amaka sat awake, her eyes darting toward the door. Her bag was packed, clothes, jewelry, and the little money she had saved from secretly selling her husband's wares. Outside, headlights flickered. Chief Aide, the wealthy businessman who had been luring her with gifts, was waiting. She could hear the engine humming like temptation itself. Amaka stood, her breath quick. She looked at the twins one last time. Kellich's tiny fist clutched his sister's wrapper. Kamsi murmured in her sleep, her lips forming the word mama. For a split second, guilt clawed at Amaka's chest. But she shook it off. "Better they grow without me than for me to rot here," she whispered. She stepped over Chinedu, her shadow stretching across the wall. The rain poured harder as she slipped into the waiting car. Chief Aide smirked. "You made the right choice. Forget that Holker. You deserve the city, the wealth, the life of a queen." As the car sped away, Chinedu stirred. The space beside him was cold. He reached out, his hand finding emptiness. Panic surged through him. He shook the mat. No Amaka, only the twins, whimpering in their sleep. He rushed outside into the rain, shouting her name, but the darkness swallowed his voice. Neighbors peeped through their windows, whispering, "It has happened. She's gone." By dawn, it was official. Amaka had abandoned the family. And with her departure, the story of survival, betrayal, and revenge truly began. Morning sunlight crept into the hut, exposing Chinedu's tear-stained face. The twins cried endlessly, their little hands reaching out for a mother who would never return. Chinedu held them close, rocking them with trembling arms. His heart shattered, but his resolve hardened. Villagers gathered outside, some pitying, others mocking. "Your wife has run off with Chief Aide," one man sneered. Another laughed. "How will you raise twins alone? You can't even raise a chicken." Their words cut like knives, but Chinedu refused to let them break him. That evening, he strapped Kamsa to his back and held Kellich's hand, walking to the roadside to sell roasted yam. Passers-by mocked. A man carrying babies like a woman. Yet, some bought food out of pity, keeping the small family alive. At night, when the children finally slept, Chinedu sat by the dim glow of a kerosene lantern. He whispered into the silence, "My children, you will not suffer like me. I will give you an education. I will give you a future. And one day, those who mock us will bow before you." His voice shook, but his eyes blazed with determination. That vow became his lifeline. Every humiliation, every hunger, every mocking laugh fueled him. The villagers saw only a broken man, but in that small hut, a father's fire was lit, and that fire would one day ignite the rise of legends. While Chinedu struggled in the village, Amaka was living in a different world. Chief Aide's mansion towered over the city, with marble floors, chandeliers, and cars lined up like soldiers. Amaka, dressed in silk gowns and diamonds, gazed at herself in a golden mirror. She smiled, convincing herself she had made the right choice. At glamorous parties, she sipped champagne, mingling with society's elite. Chief Aide flaunted her like a trophy, introducing her as "my little village treasure." The word stung, but she forced a laugh. She had wealth, but not respect. Every time she tried to assert herself, Chief Aide reminded her, "Never forget, I picked you from mud. Without me, you are nothing." Sometimes, at night, when the laughter faded and silence filled her room, memories of Kamsi and Kelechi haunted her. She imagined them crying for her, calling Mama. But she drowned the guilt with more wine, more luxury, more denial. "They are better off with him," she lied to herself. "I was not meant for that life." Yet deep inside, Amaka knew she had traded love for luxury and respect for ridicule. And one day, the price of her choice would return to her in ways she could never imagine. 10 years had passed since Amaka's midnight escape. The hut still stood, though weather-beaten, but inside, life had changed. Kamsi and Kelechi, now 10 years old, had become their father's greatest allies. Chinedu's food stall had grown into a small wooden kiosk by the roadside. Every morning, Kamsi arranged roasted plantain neatly on the tray, while Kelechi shouted to attract customers. Buy hot bolai, fresh bolai. Their teamwork amazed passers-by. In the evenings, when sales slowed, Chinedu taught them life lessons. Money is important. Yes, he told them, but integrity will open doors money cannot. You must never despise where you come from. Kamsi, curious and sharp, often asked questions beyond her years. Papa, why do the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor? Chinedu smiled sadly, because many poor people give up. But you will not give up. You will fight with your brains, not just your hands. At school, the twins excelled despite their worn uniforms. Teachers often praised their intelligence, but classmates mocked them for being poor. Children of a hawker, they jeered. Kelechi clenched his fists, but Kamsi would hold him back, whispering, "Ignore them. One day, they'll eat our dust." Every insult fueled their determination. Every hardship hardened their resolve. Unbeknownst to them, destiny was already aligning, preparing to lift them far beyond the reach of mockery. One fateful afternoon, while Chinedu was roasting yam by the roadside, a familiar car pulled up. From it stepped Mr. Okafor, the kind stranger who had once paid the twins' hospital bills years ago. His eyes widened when he recognized the family. "These are the twins? My God, they've grown," he exclaimed. The children bowed respectfully, and Chinedu's eyes watered as he remembered that day of desperation. Mr. Okafor, a retired businessman, had been searching for ways to give back. "Chinedu," he said firmly, "these children are brilliant. They don't belong here. Let me sponsor their education in the city." At first, Chinedu resisted. "Sir, I cannot let you bear such a burden. They are my responsibility." But Mr. Okafor insisted, "It is not charity, it is destiny. These children will change the world. Mark my words." That night, Chinedu wrestled with a decision. He feared losing his children to a world far bigger than he could protect them from. But as he watched them sleep under the flickering lantern light, he whispered, "Fly, my children, fly where I cannot." With Mr. Okafor's support, Kamsi and Kelechi were enrolled in one of the city's finest schools. Chinedu wept as they boarded the bus, waving until it disappeared into the horizon. His heart broke from the emptiness that followed, but pride held him together. The city school was a new battlefield. The twins, dressed in neatly pressed uniforms provided by Mr. Okafor, entered classrooms where wealth was worn like crowns. Other students flaunted expensive watches, polished shoes, and chauffeur-driven cars. From the first day, mockery began. "Look at their accents," one boy sneered. "Bush kids." A girl laughed. "Probably came here by donkey." Kelechi's temper flared. "One day, I'll own more cars than your father," he snapped. The class erupted in laughter. But Kamsi placed her hand on his arm. "Let them laugh. We are here to learn, not to fight." Despite the ridicule, their brilliance shone. Kamsi aced every math and science test, while Kelechi dominated debates and business studies. Teachers began calling them the Star Twins. Some students mocked, others grew envious. At night, the twins called Chinedu from a borrowed phone. "Papa, they laugh at us," Kamsi whispered. Chinedu's voice, warm and steady, replied, "Let them laugh today. Tomorrow, the world will clap for you." That became their mantra, and though mocked in classrooms, they began to dream bigger, of building something that would silence every laugh forever. Life in the city had its ironies. At a charity gala organized by Chief Aide, a marker stood by his side, draped in gold and perfume. She laughed loudly, surrounded by women who envied her lifestyle. But beneath her smile lay insecurity. Chief Aide had grown impatient with her aging beauty, and whispers of younger mistresses floated in the air. Meanwhile, Kamsi and Kelechi, selected as outstanding students, were invited to the same gala to receive scholarships. Dressed modestly but neatly, they entered the hall with grace. The twins' achievements were praised on stage. Amaka, sipping champagne, stared at them curiously. Something about the curve of Kamsi's smile and the sharpness in Kelechi's eyes tugged at her memory. She leaned toward Chief Aide. "Those children, they look familiar." He shrugged. "They are just some scholarship cases. Nothing important." But when the twins spotted her, their hearts stopped. They recognized her instantly, the mother who had abandoned them. Their fists tightened, their eyes burned, but they said nothing. They walked past her, heads held high. Amaka's heart skipped. Could it be? She thought. But she dismissed it quickly. After all, what were the chances her abandoned children could be standing tall in such a place? The irony was cruel. She didn't know yet that her past was catching up step by step. Years rolled by, and the twins grew into young adults. University life became their launch pad. Kamsi, passionate about technology, spent sleepless nights coding apps, one of which helped small traders track sales on mobile phones. Kelechi, with a sharp mind for finance, pitched the app to local investors. Their idea spread like wildfire. Within a year, they launched TwinSpire, a startup aimed at empowering small businesses. The project attracted attention from major investors, even international ones. What began as late-night dreams in a cramped dorm room began turning into a multi-million-dollar venture. The media praised them as the genius twins. Newspapers ran headlines, from struggle to success, twins who defy poverty. Interviews poured in, and photos of them in suits filled magazine covers. But behind their smiles, they never forgot their father's sacrifices. They sent money home, renovated the hut into a modern house, and promised Chinedu, Papa, one day we'll build you a mansion that will make kings jealous. Meanwhile, Amaka watched from afar. Her life with Chief Aide was crumbling. His affection waned. His wealth became chains, and her beauty no longer commanded admiration. One evening, as she flipped through a magazine, her glass of wine slipped from her hand. On the cover were Kamsi and Kelechi, her twins, not just surviving, but thriving. For the first time in years, regret stabbed her heart like a knife. Amaka's once lavish life began to unravel. Chief Aide, growing older but still powerful, grew tired of her presence. At parties, he no longer introduced her with pride. Instead, he flaunted younger women draped in sequins and fake innocence. One night, as Amaka prepared for a gala, Aide tossed a wad of cash onto the bed. Buy yourself something. You're no longer the jewel you used to be. Don't embarrass me tonight. The word sliced through her. For years, she had endured his insults, comforting herself with a wealth that cushioned her shame. But now, even that wealth was slipping from her grasp. Her worst fear came true when Aide publicly humiliated her. At a business event, he arrived with a new mistress, barely older than Amaka's twins. The crowd whispered, laughed, and some women pitied her. Amaka sat frozen, tears burning in her eyes, as Aide announced, "Meet the new face of my empire." Within weeks, she was thrown out of the mansion. The security guard she once commanded with arrogance now dragged her suitcases to the street. "So said you should not return," one of them muttered. Amaka found herself alone, penniless, and broken, the same fate she once mocked Chinedu for living. Back in the village, Chinedu's body was beginning to fail. Years of endless labor, carrying loads under scorching sun and sleeping on empty stomachs, had worn him down. His once broad shoulders stooped, and his cough lingered longer than usual. When Kamsi and Kelechi returned for a visit, they found him struggling to lift a sack of yams. Alarmed, they rushed him to the hospital. Doctors delivered the news. He needs rest and treatment. His body is breaking from years of overwork. The twins broke down in tears. "Papa, you carried us all these years. Now it is our turn to carry you," Kelechi whispered, holding his father's roughened hands. They paid for his treatment with their growing income from TwinSpire, sparing no expense. But more than money, they showered him with honor. They hired caretakers, renovated his home again, and ensured he never lifted a finger. One evening, as he lay on a hospital bed, Chinedu gathered strength to speak. "Children, don't let success blind you. Remember the days of hunger, remember the tears, and never forget who you are." They nodded, their eyes glistening. His sacrifices had built the foundation of their empire. They swore to repay him, not just with wealth, but with the legacy of his name. The twins' company, TwinSpire Holdings, exploded into the limelight. Investors poured millions into their fintech platform, which revolutionized small business management across Africa. From rural markets to urban malls, traders relied on their app. International recognition followed. Kamsi was invited to speak at global tech summits, dazzling audiences with her brilliance. Kelechi, bold and charismatic, negotiated with billionaires twice his age. The media crowned them Africa's youngest billionaires. Back home, villagers who once mocked Chinedu now lined the streets when the twins visited. Convoys of sleek black SUVs rolled into the dusty village, attracting curious children and awestruck elders. The twins donated boreholes, schools, and scholarships. The once humiliated family now commanded respect that silenced even the harshest critics. Chinedu, now recovering, stood tall in pride. "See how God works," he whispered as he watched villagers bow to greet his children. But not everyone was pleased. Hidden in the shadows of the city, Amaka watched these triumphs unfold. Each magazine cover, each television interview stabbed her heart. The children she had abandoned were not just surviving, they were reigning. Amaka's decline was brutal. From golden jewelry to faded wrappers, from gala nights to begging rides on crowded buses, she had fallen from grace. She tried reconnecting with old friends, but doors slammed in her face. The women who once envied her now mocked her. "Is this not Amaka, the one who called us villagers? Look at her now." One evening, she walked past a newspaper stand. Her eyes froze on a headline, "Twins of Hope, Kamsi and Kelechi changing Africa's future." Their smiling faces stared back at her, powerful and polished. Her knees weakened. Memories of their tiny hands tugging at her wrapper, crying for her warmth, haunted her. She had left them for comfort, and now they lived the very dream she had sought. Without her, she began following their success obsessively. She attended their public events, standing far behind the crowds, hiding her face with scarves. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, "My children, my babies." For the first time, she admitted the truth. She had made the worst mistake of her life. But could forgiveness still be possible? The twins decided it was time to honor their father and their roots. They returned to the village in grandeur. The convoys stretched for miles, black jeeps, luxury buses, and even a helicopter hovering above. Villagers poured into the streets, dancing, singing, and ululating. Chinedu sat in the back of the lead SUV, dressed in agbada finer than any chief's. His tears flowed freely as he saw the respect he had been denied for decades. Men who once mocked him now prostrated. Women who had whispered against him now knelt in reverence. At the town square, the twins announced their gifts: a modern school, a hospital, scholarships for all orphans, and capital for women traders. The crowd erupted in joy. Elders crowned the twins with traditional titles, hailing them as the pride of the land. That evening, as fireworks lit the sky, Amaka stood in the shadows, watching. She had followed them back to the village, but fear gripped her. She wanted to rush forward, to fall at their feet and beg, but shame pinned her in place. Finally, as the drums beat louder and praises filled the air, she whispered, "They are mine, my children, but do they still see me as their mother?" Her moment of reckoning was drawing near. The night after the grand village celebration, the air was still thick with joy. Songs of praise for the twins echoed in the distance, but Amaka could no longer hide in the shadows. She crept toward the newly built mansion where the family gathered. Dressed in a faded wrapper, barefoot, her once proud face now carved with lines of hardship, she approached the gate trembling. The guards frowned. "Who are you?" I am their mother," she whispered, tears streaming. Inside, the twins sat with Chinedu, laughing over memories of their childhood. Suddenly, a commotion at the gate broke the moment. When the guards announced her, silence fell like a stone. Chinedu's spoon froze midway to his mouth. Kamsi's heart thudded. Kelechi clenched his fists. Against their father's quiet nod, the guards let her in. Amaka fell to her knees the moment she saw them. "My children," she cried, crawling forward. "Forgive me. I was blind, foolish, greedy. I left you for riches that turned to dust. Please, give me another chance." Her sobs echoed through the marble hall, but the twins' faces remained hard, unreadable. The pain of a betrayal still lived raw in their hearts. The moment they had both dreaded and desired had finally arrived. Kelechi stood abruptly, his chair screeching across the floor. His voice thundered. Now you remember us? After you abandoned us in hunger, after Papa nearly died raising us alone, after we were mocked and spat on." Amaka shook her head violently. "No, my son." "Don't call me that," he snapped. His eyes burned with fury. "We cried for you every night. Papa sold his sweat and blood so we could eat. And you, where were you? In a mansion, wearing diamonds, while your children wore rags." Kamsa's voice, calmer but equally sharp, cut in. "We saw you once, Mama, at Chief Aid's gala. Do you remember? You looked right at us and didn't recognize your own children." Amaka wailed, clutching her chest. "I was blind with pride. But I see now. Please, don't cast me away." The villagers, drawn by the noise, gathered outside the mansion. Murmurs spread. "Is that not Amaka, the runaway wife? The twins' mother?" The confrontation became public. For the first time, Amaka's sins were laid bare, not in whispers, but in front of all. Chinedu, who had sat silently throughout, finally rose. His once frail frame now wrapped in regal adbada, his voice was steady, commanding respect. "My children," he began softly, "anger is natural. She hurt us. She broke us. But listen, if you let bitterness rule, you are no better than those who mocked us." He turned to Amaka. "You abandoned us when we needed you most. You chose wealth over love. But today, kneeling here, I see not the proud woman who left, but the broken woman who has learned." The twins lowered their heads, torn between fury and their father's wisdom. Chinedu placed a hand on Kelechi's shoulder. "Remember my vow? I said you would rise above mockery. You have. Don't let hatred chain you now. Forgive, not for her sake, but for yours." His words struck deep. The crowd outside murmured with approval. Even in betrayal, Chinedu's dignity shone brighter than gold. The mansion fell into silence. Finally, Kamsis spoke, her voice trembling but firm. "Mama, we forgive you. Not because it is easy, but because Papa is right. Carrying this hate will poison us." Kelechi exhaled sharply, his fists unclenching. "Yes, we forgive you. But forgiveness is not the same as restoration." Amaka blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Kamsi continued, "You will have shelter. You will not beg. We will build you a small house, give you a monthly allowance. But you will never again have the right to command us or claim the life you abandoned." Amaka broke down, sobbing. "I will take it. I will take anything. Thank you, my children. Thank you." The villagers, watching through the gates, nodded. Justice had been tempered with mercy. The twins had proven themselves not just wealthy, but wise. For Amaka, it was a bittersweet mercy. She was accepted, but never fully restored. The empire she had once rejected would forever remain out of her grasp. Months later, a grand event filled the village square. The twins stood with their father, unveiling a gleaming new hospital named the Chinedu Foundation Medical Center. Villagers erupted in cheers as the ribbon was cut. Chinedu's eyes brimmed with tears as he looked upon the crowd. From a leaking hut to this, God has been faithful. Reporters swarmed the event, capturing the story of the man once mocked, now honored. When asked how he felt, Chinedu simply said, "I was abandoned, yes, but I was never alone. My children became my crown." Kamsi and Kelechi, dressed in matching suits, stood proudly beside him. Their voices echoed in unison. "This is only the beginning. We will not only change our family's story, but the story of many who were once mocked like us." In the background, Amaka watched quietly. She clutched her wrapper, tears streaming as she whispered, "They are greater than I ever imagined." Though she would never sit on the throne of their empire, she knew one truth. Her abandonment had planted the very pain that fueled their rise. The story closed not in bitterness, but in triumph. From the ashes of mockery, betrayal, and hunger, a father and his twins had risen to build a legacy the world would never forget.